So I made two videos about time travel, and I wasn't happy about them. Each had its own problems. And I think that instead of making the same video again and again, trying to get everything right, I just break it into parts. But just understand that the reason I'm making so many videos about it because uh, it, it is a complex topic when in the context of this theory. It's complex, but I should start with I should start with the simple stuff. The simple thing is the same thing I said in the previous videos. Time is not a dimension. I made a video about that. You can check it. And therefore, it doesn't exist. It is the idea that there's such a thing as the dimension of time. That's the same thing as the idea that there's such a thing as redness. There's definitely something that it feels like that you can deduce redness from, but you don't have redness in the physical wakeful world. You don't. It's not an element that exists absent experience. And the same is true for time. The dimension of time, the progression along time. That's all a story that you, semantics that you extract, and they exist only as experiential movements, only as something that you can understand. They don't correspond with anything that is objectively out there. And which is different from other things that the theory says do exist objectively and cause you to perceive what you perceive. So there is no access of time, and therefore you cannot go back in time or go into the future, because it simply doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist as a dimension in the present. It doesn't exist as a dimension in the past, and it doesn't exist as a dimension in the future. It behaves like a dimension in equations, but that's just a symbolic dimension. That's not something that exists and that things exist in it. That's just the calculations make it possible. It's a component of the calculation in the present of how things happen according to the laws of nature, but it's not in itself an existing element. And more than that, the same, what I'm saying about time is the same about the let's say the elements as you perceive them in the present. Let's say if you had a time machine, so the time machine, you have an impression of the time machine. Let's say it looks like the DeLorean from the Back to the Future. Okay, it looks like that to you, but the physical substrate, the objective substrate that makes you perceive it, is not a DeLorean. It is something that is timeless, doesn't exist in time. It's something that experience reflects on at this particular moment, and when it reflects back, it looks like a DeLorean, but it's not. There's not an element that is a DeLorean. The only place it exists is in your perception as an experience. So what this means is you cannot travel, like take some kind of a machinery and that will take you to a different location in time, because not only does the location doesn't exist in time, the machine, the time machine doesn't exist in time. All this. So the only type of temporal, if we are going to say, I don't want to travel in time, but I want to go back to a previous configuration. Well, the only previous or future configuration that you can travel to is one where you're at the center of an experiential intersection. It's basically, you can only experience the future, the present, the future, or the past as an experiential agent. DeLorean, a time machine, doesn't have it's not an experiential intersection. Therefore, there is no time machine in that sense. So, and more than that, if you're gonna think about time travel as if, let's say there's a coordinate where you are and you want to know what's gonna be there in, I don't know, 10,000 years, without there being an experiential agent like at that location, well, that doesn't mean anything. According to the theory, that coordinate, it's just a semantics that you interpret as an experiential agent. It doesn't exist without the perceiving experiential agent, and it doesn't progress a long time. And more than that, the fact that you pay notice to that specific coordinate is just something that is purely experiential. The coordinate itself doesn't know that it is being observed. It doesn't exist. So, in other words, the only type of time travel that is possible is between perceptions of the objective subject of reality, and sometimes that reflection upon the objective subject of reality coheres with the perception of the wakeful physical world. Sometimes it doesn't. When you're dreaming, it doesn't. When you're hallucinating on psychedelic, it doesn't. But there are times where it does. And what does that mean when it does? It means that you're not the only one that perceives it. It means that other experiential agents perceive it with you. That's basically it. It's part of a wakeful union at that time, a union of experiential agents that perceive the same story, the same element, as if they exist in this fictitious space and time. If you want, if this reality is like a video game, and when you play, when it's a multiplayer game, then that you call that the wakeful union. When it's a single player game, it's that would be a dream, that would be a hallucination. But the time in the game is not the time of is not a real time. It's just a perceived time. The time progression inside the game is fictitious. It doesn't cohere with the experiential time of the player. It doesn't cohere with the time of the machine, or with the software program, like the whatever makes the computer makes it possible for the computer to produce the game. So it's simply not real, and it can't progress from moment to moment. The only type of time travel or any kind of reality changes are perceived reality changes are in experience. So this is like the basic, like from that base understanding, can you even begin to evaluate the topic of time travel. You should never go back. If you are going to understand the topic of time travel in the theory, you should never go back and assume that you are on some kind of a scale, like or like a football field, where there's the beginning, there's the past, and the middle is the present, and in the end is the future. That doesn't exist. There is no linearity between the moments. Experience is independent, causally independent from the reality it so-called perceives, and so there is no linearity between experiences. Not necessarily. There's a tendency for linearity, but that's just because the wakeful world, the concoction that the body produces for experience to perceive, compels experience that moving along time as physical, natural time, or the idea of it, is a compelling move that it should take. But it just persuading it. It's not forcing it.